to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Dr. Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. I'm Dr. Squee and this is my show. Tonight, I am really honored to be welcoming an improviser, a stand-up comic, a writer, a podcaster, an actor, an activist, like you name it, I'm pretty sure he does it. Hailing originally from San Francisco in the Americas, you might know him from the Star Wars universe, from the Goldberg spin-off Schooled, from his globe-trotting hit podcast, The Smartest Man in the World, and Whose Line Is It Anyway, both UK, US, and right through to the Revive show in the US these days. Please welcome to the Dr. Squee Show, Greg Proops. How are you doing today?
Hello, Dr. Squee. I'm fine. How are you, everybody?
Sir,
Hello, Australia. Hello, dogs.
Yeah, apologies for my dogs in the background there.
Right.
Now, sir, though, you're one of the guests who I think might just come on this show for a bit of a break in between things because you do so much.
Well, I'm a little bit off this week, so yeah, we're starting back up at work on Saturday with Who's Live guys.
I mean, it's incredible. And, you know, they say there isn't such thing as a job for life. I mean, Whose Line's It Anyway? What's it been, about 25 years since your first appearance on that?
Oh, honey bear. We're over 30 years now. We really
over
are.
30.
When I started it, I had no idea that it was going to be the rest of my life, but it turned out to be that way. And so it's okay. Yeah, my first year was 89 and the show started, I think, in 88. And then, yeah, so we're on forever and ever. Dude.
It's incredible, man. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's been awesome because I've been able to come to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, England, Ireland, all over the world because of it. So I can't complain, really.
It's been incredible. So, like, taking you right back though, in the early days, you had a very early double act in your college years of Proops and Brakeman. Was that your first foray into comedy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, Brakeman and I met each other in grade school. And then we moved to San Francisco together. And then we were a stand-up comedy team. This is in the, oh my goodness, this is in the 70s and early 80s. And then I stayed in San Francisco and Brakeman moved to Los Angeles. And then I carried on doing stand-up on my own and then got on Whose Line Is It Anyway? And oh my God. So that's, yeah, you're taking me back to the day. I was texting Brakeman yesterday during the Super Bowl because he and I had bet on the 1971 Super Bowl. I think we bet a quarter on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously you have this wonderful kind of way of just fast talking and always having kind of something like really erudite and kind of quick-witted to say. Did you always have that, or was it kind of like, was it the chicken or the egg? Was it kind of through improvisation you got that, or were you just a natural improviser and that kind of led you into that field?
Oh no, I was always I could, like, for instance, when I was little, I was always thrown out of class or sitting outside because I was talking all the time and making fun of the teacher and acting out the stories and whatnot. And then when I finally saw improv when I was 19, I was at San Francisco State and I lived in the dormitories and they had a cantina. Yes, a cantina. And they had improv there and they did a bit where they asked people to come out of the audience. So I went to see the improv show and I thought, much like the artist Kienholz thought when his parents took him to see Rembrandt, I can do that. So I thought I can do that. So the next week I sat in the front row and I volunteered. As soon as they asked for a volunteer, I jumped on stage and I got asked to be in the group the next day. And it just suited me, you know. I like the tightrope element of improv. I think Keith Johnstone, the famous guru of improv, who I believe was Australian, if he wasn't, he should have been, said it's like walking backwards down a road. And that's the part I enjoy.
Oh, and apparently we're so entertaining. We're keeping folks up. So we've got...
yes, I see that. Hooray.
I believe maybe over in the States. He's getting ready to sleep. And then Doc is like, here's Greg freaking Proops. No, I'm not sleeping.
Stay up, baby.
Yeah, worth staying up for, I think you'll find. And what did you find kind of the skills naturally transferred of just having that ability to talk off the top of your head, or were there challenges when you start doing improv?
Well, I mean, I had to learn to play the games, but as my friend Jim Sweeney from the Comedy Store Players in London says, you have to learn all the rules so that you can break all the rules. So it's important to learn how to play all the games and stuff like that. And then I think the real trick is to not do them. On Whose Line on TV, what makes it funny is that we'll walk off the stage and go into the camera, or just basically defy what's going on or change the rules. So I think that's the challenge. The challenge is to not show process. The challenge is to be funny on the moment. And I think I've had the very great luck to work with people like Mike McShane and Josie Lawrence and Ryan Stiles and Colin Mockery and Wayne Brady, who are all genius improvisers. And they just don't care what the topic is. They don't care what the suggestion is. They're just funny.
And speaking of Mike McShane there, that was one of the earlier people you were already kind of gigging with when you got discovered for Whose Line. Did you first meet him over here in the UK, or was that originally in the States and then you
You've
moved
done
over?
a lot of research, Dr. Squee.
I look up a thing or two.
Muffy and I met in college. Yes, Muffy. And,
I love it.
Right? Mish, Muff. Muff and I met in college, and I can't remember if we were doing a play together or we are just in the drama department or whatever. Anyway, at San Francisco State. And then he sat in with the improv group I was in, the one I described at the Cantina. And then years later, we formed an improv group, and Mike joined it. That was like in the mid 80s. And we were called Fault Line. Get it? We're from San Francisco. And then Muff got on the show in 88 and went over and did Whose Line. And then I came over in 89. So, and me and him had been doing an improv team together in San Francisco for a couple years. So we still play together, but only every once in a while. Like before the plague in 2019, we were in Edinburgh at the Fringe Festival, and they did a Whose Line show there. And it was me and Muff and Steve Frosty from Whose Line, all the old Whose Line guys. So Richard Ronch, whatnot, and Clive hosted, which was terrible. But so that was the last time I think me and him jammed together, and we had a really good time. We still have a lot of rapport after all these years. I mean, when you have chemistry with people, you have chemistry. So there's always a special place in my heart for him, no matter how big of a dick he is.
I mean, it's when you first got discovered and put on Whose Line, was it kind of any kind of culture shock for you, or were you just like, it's just a different format to do the same thing in?
Whose Line was very exciting because Muff called me, and I was playing in Spokane or Idaho, some awful place. And he goes, there's this English improv show, and they auditioned in San Francisco. And I was like burst into tears because I couldn't go. And then he went over and did the show, and he told me about it. And then I got on the next year, I auditioned. And so I got to go to England, and I'd never been anywhere. I'd never seen a zebra crossing or a red phone box or anything like that, or ate a chip that was, in undercooked oil or without a serviette. And so I got to do all those things. And then that was very exciting. My wife came over the next year, and then we moved to England for like 5 years. Yep. And I toured the place. And so it really changed my life, more than just the TV show or the format. I know that's what the fans want to talk about, but for me, it was a life-changing experience because I did stand-up in England and a radio show, television shows, so it really made my life a lot better. And if I've been underpaid on Whose Line, I guess they paid me back in bonus points by letting me go around the world.
I mean, I remember the very early days of the show. It was basically a vehicle for John Sessions, and it was him and Clive, obviously. And it just kind of like it built itself from there. It became just like a showcase for talent. And I think when you get the American and Canadian talents coming over, that's when it really becomes something of itself. Like it's before that, it was kind of like the dry witticism of the English or British sense of humor. I thought was great. But then you got the showmanship of it when you got the American talent in there. Did you feel like the show evolved?
You're very well versed on this. That's exactly how it went down. My first show in 89 was me and Tony, Slattery John, sessions and Joe's, and I was putting my glasses on. I had 2 different pairs of glasses. I was kind of nervous, and I brought 2 different pairs of glasses with me. We're in the makeup room, and I just met John, you see, and John was wearing a couple of tissues under his neck because he just put his makeup on, and we were smoking, and in those days, and we were in the makeup room, and I said to him, John, can I ask you something? Do you like these glasses better or these glasses? And I put on a pair of glasses, and he went, Greg, those are a bit ornithological convention in Omaha. And I was like, that is super specific. And then we got along after that. And so that's the first incantation of Whose Line was definitely John's show. And then I think because Dan Patterson, our producer and overlord, went to school at the University of Chicago, he always had a soft spot for Yanks, right? So he brought over McShane, and then he brought over me, and then he brought over Ryan and Colin. And Colin's Canadian, and Ryan is sort of an honorary Canadian, grew up in Richmond, BC, but American. And I think the energy of the show changed. Like, I remember going like this to high five Tony or one of the Brits at the beginning of the show, and they went like this and handed me their hand to shake my hand. And so we had a different energy. Like Muff and I, when we'd finish a bit with fucking, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to swear.
I'll edit that one for the radio version.
Okay, good. I think it changed the energy to a more swinging freestyle energy, because Paul, Merton, and John and all them, John was extraordinarily witty and very cerebral. And I quite enjoyed that portion of the show because we used to do a lot more stuff about authors and a lot more witticisms. And then the show got broader and more musical based. And so it changed tone. And then when Muff was kind of the star, it was a lot of music. And then when Ryan really kind of took over as the star after that. And so and then we moved to America, and then of course Ryan and Drew. So I think you're right about how the energy changed. And I think it was what we like to call in Britain, North Americans, who brought a different energy to it. And it really helped all of us. I mean, look, we're all very grateful that they brought the North Americans. By the way, we were all veterans by that point. No one on the show was 21 years old. We're seasoned, as they say, as a euphemism.
I mean, something you were saying there really kind of like commented. You were saying about like you went to high five. See, I think this is the basic difference between Americans. When you guys celebrate, God, you'll do a 5-minute dance about it. We'll just maybe politely nod after we've done the best show of our lives.
Oh, that's my understanding. After you beat the French at Poitiers, the British just simply dabbed their foreheads and moved on. Whereas we would have a banquet over ourselves for quite some time. Yeah, no,
See,
and
that's
the
why the
other
mix was
difference
the
was
best.
American, like the British audience. Clive would go into the British audience and say, "Can I have a suggestion for something fun you did?" And someone would go like, "Well, I went and I had a curry." They were really reticent in those days. Not so much now, because Britain's changed a lot and become as shallow and stupid as America, which I pretty much saw coming but didn't want to. And then American audiences are always camera ready. Everybody's ready to get up and do it. So that's another difference. Canadians are a little more shy, like New Zealanders. I can't remember which comic said it. The brilliant New Zealanders are the Canadians of the South Pacific, and of course, conversely, Canadians are the Kiwis of the Arctic.
We've got a couple of questions. So first of all,
Yes, please.
Did you find the translation from stand-up to improv difficult, or was it fairly smooth a transition when you were used to working with live crowds?
It wasn't a transition so much as a grand assimilation. I was already riffing as a stand-up comic, which is what we call it when you make stuff up. The word ad-lib is very old-fashioned. I don't think any comics have called it an ad-lib since the 60s. We would riff, and then once I was able to learn how to do improv, it informed my stand-up so that I was able to come off the script, which if you see me do stand-up now, I'm generally making it up. I kind of quit writing a while ago, and I'll write on stage and whatnot. I mean, yeah, I have bits and routines. I'm not that loose, but So I think it complements one the other. So I'm able to address the audience in the moment as a stand-up and go, it's not going very well now, but soon it will, kind of thing. So that helped me, I think, as a stand-up. And then the other thing that really helped me was going to England, because once I was able to get my mind around English sensibilities, I wasn't afraid anymore of any other audiences. After playing Glasgow, I think you pretty much have sorted out what could happen to you.
Yeah, after you've got a bottle of iron brew shoved, thrown at your head, I'm pretty sure anything else is easy after that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Something which, just riffing on that as well, is you said about you more make up stuff as you kind of go along, and you're a bit more freeform with your show now. Is it kind of a move from, like, I've heard some comedians talk about moving from more their latest kind of hour to more their routine? Do you have more routine moments, and kind of like just it's the freeform jazz in between it?
I have a good idea of what I'm gonna say. Like, I made an album at New Year's, and I was trying to address everything that's been going on the last 2 years. So I didn't have all the material written out as brilliantly as it might be. So I tried to riff on it and see if I could improve it live. But I had ideas about what I wanted to talk about. And then there was a few things I'd done on Zoom shows during the containment. And as you know, the Zoom shows just genius. I don't think anything screams comedy more than watching someone on your phone. And so that was the kind of the way I approached it. The album I did before that I'd never released, that we did 2 years ago, summer in San Francisco, I really tried to riff the whole thing. But the last few things I've recorded, I've tried to make as topical as reactive as possible. As far as the content goes, we're talking about the Nazi takeover that we had here, winning democracy back, the plague, all those things, because I think it's important to kind of process those comedically for people. I know a lot of comics don't ever try to touch anything that ever happened that's real in their life. And you know what? I respect that attitude too, but it's just not something I'm going to do. I'm going to do a combination of knob gags, vaudeville, and cogent, trenchant satire.
Yeah,
and funny voices.
I think you're kind of like me. Even if you try to not kind of talk about how you're feeling about things politically, I don't think you get very far.
Is it too late for me to post this on? Oh, never mind. I realized there was an option before to put it on social media, and I think I skipped that. But we can, when you send me the radio one, I'll post it later.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sorry, I jumped off topic there.
Not a problem at all. Long-term listener, first caller. Welcome on air, Harold. I'm going to guess CV Harold 100. What's your best corpsing on stage story?
Oh, well, I mean, I've laughed at everything. For our American friends, corpsing means breaking character and laughing. Because of, I believe, the British tradition of when you're playing a corpse in something and you can't stop laughing on camera or on stage, and everyone notices that the corpse is alive. It's a much better way of saying breaking. I've made no effort over the years. Stop it. I've made no effort over the years. Shut up. I've made no effort at my phone over the years to hold character. That's for other people. I've laughed at everything everyone said. So I've corpsed on TV a zillion times. I think one time in England we were taping, and Tony Slattery's trousers burst, and he was going commando. Let me just put it that way. And so I saw things that no human should see, really. And that was a moment where I had a little trouble holding it together.
Yeah. And apparently so did he.
No, he totally didn't hold it together. They ran off and they sewed him up, his trousers rather. And they brought him back on. I know. Ryan and I were shooting at the Limehouse with the guys, and that was in London. And one of the pipes burst in the studio. I swear to you, the pipes burst. And so water flooded the studio. This is England in the early 90s. Safety first. Yeah. So we closed the studio down. I'm not kidding. Everybody went outside. It was freezing. We all were smoking and talking. We went outside. Ryan and I went outside with the audience. And we all stood outside for like half an hour while they wiped the water up. Then we came back inside. And Dan, the producer, came up to me and goes, "Don't mention what happened because the people at home will never know." And I went, "Right, you got it." So the next thing we were playing was movie style options, whatever, and it was the Titanic or something. And I was grabbed around Ryan, and Ryan was pretending to hang on. And I said, "Oh my God, the pipes burst." And the audience lost it. And so there's an inordinate laugh on that episode if you ever see it again. It's not that funny to say the pipes burst, although we were on the Titanic. The audience loses their mind because, of course, I was going to say what happened. Literally, we'd been standing outside for 45 minutes waiting because the pipes had burst. So I don't know if that's a corpsing story, but I thought it was a cute.
Oh, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah, story.
On the Titanic, like in method acting almost there.
Right. Always incorporate.
I love it.
Show's about what the show's about. Yeah.
You talked about when you came over and you were gigging over here as well. I know it's something which people have to adapt their acts for different markets. Like I now, kind of like as we've been speaking now, you've been auto translating everything you're saying into English slang as well, or American slang. Did you find kind of stuff in your act worked better or worse, or kind of how was that?
Oh, I think it's more a matter of timing with it than anything. British crowds don't laugh at tags very much. Like when the joke's over, you hit the punchline, and then an English crowd laughs. And then if you try to tag it with a bunch of extra jokes, they don't go. Whereas American crowds will go 3-4 more extra jokes off the back of a joke. But here's a joke that I did years ago that wasn't particularly funny, but got an amazingly different reaction in every market. And that was, I'd been to Australia and we'd taken a tour of what I was calling the marsupial concentration camps. And one of the guides was wearing a big hat that had dingle balls hanging off of it because there was bats everywhere. And I said the reason was that the balls, right, they were warding off the bats because the ball and the bat are mortal enemies. Now, in Australia, people literally fell over laughing at that. The ball and the bat are mortal enemies. In England, it got a groan. They'd go, "Oh." And then in America, it was like, "What?" Right? So that terrible pun played so many different ways, like of gradual gradations of reaction. And that one always fascinated me, that certain groups really love puns and certain groups really love vaudeville and pratfalls, and others are more, and American audiences are sentimental. They really are. If you go, "I love you guys," they go, "We love you," right? Whereas if you say to the British audience, "I love you," they're like, "Bug off and tell some jokes." And then Ireland is sort of splits the difference. And Scotland, they like to be as harsh as they can. But the truth is, underneath that criminal veneer, they're very soft, like all gangsters. And
I mean, on radio, of course, this goes out in Wales. How did you find the Welsh crowd?
I love Welsh crowds. I had the biggest crowd for the podcast ever because of my wife got me into the Hay Festival, which is, as you know, just outside of Wales and on the border, as it were, and where the sheep are. We had 800 people in. And the reason was, at the Hay Festival is like a literary festival, so it was all these authors and jazz. Well, I did the podcast there, but I think we charged like £7. So Welsh people came out like in droves because everything else cost £20, right? To see Jeanette Winterson or to see, David Starkey or whoever was reading that year, that cost $1 zillion. But to see my show was £7. So it was the price of a movie or like 2 pints. And so people were like, "It's great value." That was where the Welsh were coming from. And also, I make fun of the English, like very few comedians. I just lay into them. And so I'm enormously popular in Wales, Scotland, and Ireland because I'm not English. But I will really have a go at English people and how crap they are. And so I think that helps push things along.
Yeah, I have
also,
to declare...
I know where I am. Like, we did Wales, and I had done a show. We went to see John Cale in Cardiff, and we got to go backstage because I'm fancy. And John Cale, of course, an insanely famous Welsh person. And in the show, Michael Sheen and Charlotte Church So it was like the creme de la creme of Welsh Illuminati back there. And I happen to know them both from having met them at different gigs. I did a gig with Charlotte Church in 1997 at Prince Charles' 50th birthday. You're not, if you can believe this.
Wow.
And she's absolutely lovely. And Michael Sheen, I'd done some comedy shows with in LA, and he's really nice. So I think the Welsh are completely hard done by the English. And I think the Welsh would agree with me. My joke is always, I don't know why you don't go into town and just burn London to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, I have to put in several references to how rubbish my country is versus the mighty Welsh per show. And I'm happy to do it. You guys are right.
No, absolutely. There's something they know in Pontardawe that we don't know everywhere else.
Yeah. One which I did want to ask about was when you were over here, you also did Space Cadets, which was you. It was Craig Charles. It was Bill Bailey. And one of the episodes had William Shatner on it, which like particularly looms large in my mind. But how'd that show come about? Were you always kind of like, were you into sci-fi and things like that?
Oh, not at all. I don't care about sci-fi or comic books. The really lovely Scottish producer whose wife is Kirsty Work. You may know Kirsty Work. He asked me to do the show, and it was on BBC Two, I think. And we put it together. And I mean, I like sci-fi. We had so many great guests on. Obviously, Craig and Bill. I've reached out to Craig last year, and we contacted each other. Bill, I haven't seen for a few years. He came to LA a few years ago, and we had a long night together. Shatner episode was awesome. And I kept an 8x10 that we took of me, William Shatner, Craig Charles, and Bill Bailey, all in our space uniforms. And William Shatner autographed it. And I swear to you, like during the containment, it was his birthday or something. I found the photo. I kept it in a good, instead of losing it, I actually kept it. And I took a picture of it and posted it because William Shatner kissed Craig Charles. He got up and did a happy dance. He was hilarious the whole day through. And backstage, William Shatner speaks exactly like William Shatner. There's no moment when he's not, you know what I mean? He's not like putting on a character like Mick Jagger or something.
No.
So I said to him, Bill, what airline did you take to come over? And he went, I took Virgin. And I go, well, what did you think of Virgin? Because I said, I quite like Virgin Airlines. And he went, I go, they're really nice. And he goes, yes, they're nice. And that's what makes you love him. Yeah. He's really game for anything. And he has a heck of a sense of humor, not only about everything, but about himself. And him and Walter Koenig from Star Trek were on, Ed Bishop from UFO, Terry Pratchett from Discworld, Claudia Christian, who I think was on
Babylon
Deep Space Nine. Which one was she?
Babylon 5.
Oh, Babylon 5, thanks. And then the two cats who played Ferengi, who were on Deep Space Nine and New Edition, Next Generation. Yeah. They were on. I mean, we had a load of people.
Armin Shimon and Max Grodenchik.
Max, well remembered. So, goddamn, you're really into this whole space cadet thing. You know what? Here's a space cadet story. I was walking near the Pleasance in Edinburgh in 97, 98, right after Space Cadets. And I was walking down that part of town in Edinburgh. And a person came up to me on the street and went, Greg, stopped me and went, Greg, I love you on Whose Line, but Space Cadets, why?
The weirdest one which stuck in my mind, I don't know why, I think it was just the quickness of your reaction to this, was when Craig Charles, you showed a clip from Logan's Run, and Craig Charles goes, yeah, you'll notice there's no black guys in this. Like, you know, they're not planning us being around in this future, apparently. And you, quick as a flash, said, yeah, you'll also notice there was a lot of waltzes. You leave us alone for too long. That'll happen.
What did I say?
You'll also notice there was a load of waltzes then as well. You leave us alone for too long. That'll have waltzes, like the dance waltzes.
Oh, yeah. Wow. And Logan's Run has Roscoe Lee Brown as Box, who's one of the great black guys. Yeah, that's... You know, our writers were who do we have? Dave Hempel. We had got a bunch of guys who are giant writers in Scotland now and comedians. Ford, what's his name? Dave, who was one of our writers. The writers went on to giant careers because they were all dead clever. And one of them wrote the brilliant line for me, "Wine me, dine me, Deep Space Nine me," which I thought was awesome.
I thought it was just really great. Like, you know, obviously, if you're a sci-fi fan, you have to have a sense of humor because God knows everyone else can have a sense of humor in your bath. But it was just nice to have a show where it's like it was taking the mick from the inside of it almost, as opposed from the outside, which we were used to. So that was just kind of nice. We mentioned about obviously you done Whose Line Over Here. You went back to the States. You did this green screen show with Drew Carey, which was a kind of precursor to the US show, it sounds like.
We'd already done Whose Line since 1999 or whatever. Green screen was 2005, I think. It was Drew's idea to do an improv show and have animators come in and animate it. So it was a great idea on paper. So like, you know, you'd go, "Oh my God, we're pirates," and then they draw a pirate ship or whatever. The problem was some of the animators didn't quite get the whole idea of improv. So we would say something, and like before we would say it, they would have drawn it behind us, which makes us look like we had written it. And also we recorded it live over the course of like 4 or 5 nights. And we did these long recording sessions in front of an enormous green set, right? The entire set was a green screen. So for the live audience looking into that for hours, it makes your head explode, right? Because it was a lime green. And also, Whose Line we shoot, but we shoot in, you know, segments, right? So we get up, we play a game, we shoot it, we stop, we get up, we play a game, you know, we keep going. With green screen, we literally just go and go and go and go and go. And so it was edited differently. I thought it was great fun. The best fun we had with green screen was we went on a giant tour afterward with Drew, and that was really good fun. We toured the country, and we were drinking pretty hard during green screen during the tapings. Jeff Davis had a little attaché case called the Executane 8000, I think. And when you opened it, it had room for several bottles and whatnot. And there was glasses and soda and whatnot on the set and ice. And so we would go Executane and then meet in his dressing room. Because the improv was challenging on that show. And we would just look at each other and go, "Courage." That was our byword on that show.
It sounds almost like that could be a Whose Line round where you're trying to come up with names for 90s luggage. The Executane.
The Executane. You'll see it on old, eBay type things. It was for dipsomaniacs, right, to carry around so you could have a transportable bar with you. It came with a shaker and like some stirrers, I don't know, glasses, whatnot.
I love it.
I don't know if Jeff still has it, but it saved our lives during that show because we were desperate to be funny at that point.
We're talking about Drew there, and what I loved about him when I first saw him on, I think I caught some Drew Carey show, which came over here on ITV, I think it was. And he immediately struck me. And when I saw him do the talk show, this kind of confirmed it as being kind of like in the mold of almost, oh God, what's his name? Craig Ferguson. Like when he did the kind of late night TV, it's like they couldn't restrain him down to being what all the other ones were being kind of quite, even though they had the anarchic moments, they did everything to a format. Whereas like he kind of really seemed to have fun around the margins, which was great.
Oh, absolutely. Ryan went to Drew and said, "I'm on this show in England," and he showed him tapes of it. And then they took it around to a bunch of different places, and ABC or Warner Brothers ended up getting it. And, Drew's a love shack. He's really a sweet guy. We still work together. I mean, the group I'm in, sometimes if someone has another engagement or doesn't want to go to a gig, we have substitutes. And one of our guys who sits in with us is Drew. And he still does that at this late date. And I just texted Drew yesterday, in fact. He's really a great guy and a really lovely, warm human being. It really wouldn't have happened in the States without him. So he's a critical person in the Who's Line,
Yeah.
History, because we got to do 4 years on ABC, and then I think 2 years on the ABC Family Channel, which is now called Freeform, and then of course 1,000 reruns after that and everything. So it was huge for us. People still say to me, I really miss Who's Line. We've been on the CW in America for 8 years. In fact, we had a season this year. We even had shows. Yeah. And people go, don't you miss doing Who's Line? And I'm like, not as much as you might think.
Doing the original run in the States, especially, it seemed like you guys who'd come over and done the UK version, it's almost like you were bringing that kind of sardonic kind of wit to it, whereas like some of the new kind of performers were that, like you were saying, gave all the glitz and glamour. It was kind of nice to have that anchor, I felt, which was provided by you guys. Was that a conscious effort, or just you learned from being over here, that kind of style?
On the ABC one?
Yeah, when it first came over with Drew.
Well, hilariously, Dan, the producer, came up to me on one of my first episodes and said, now remember, Drew's not Clive, so you can't make fun of him. And I was like, I think you'll find I can. We were all just excited to be doing. I think the first series we did of the American one was what we call a summer replacement show. They don't even do it anymore. ABC made 6 episodes and we put them on in the summer to see how it would fly. And that really helped us get an audience, because in those days, people watched a lot more TV, network TV, for one thing. This was like 1999. And so I think everyone was excited to see a format that wasn't rigid on TV. Everyone was used to sitcoms and like that. And this was right before reality TV and right before talent shows on TV took over again. And so I think it seemed really fresh and dangerous. And I think that's why people really, because we were up against Friends, and what was the other show in those days? Survivor, I think, came on soon after. And we were on Thursday nights, and the 2 shows that were on opposite up were Friends and Survivor, which were both cultural phenomenons. Yeah. And I thought we held our own, considering,
Oh, I mean, it's not doing too badly considering it's still going on in the States.
Right? We're dragging it on to this very day.
Yeah. And did you feel like it was the right time for a revival kind of over the last few years to bring the show back? And why do you think it's so enduring to come back so many times?
Oh, look, we after the containment, we hadn't been able to tour live for 18 months or whatever, like everyone else. And we just went on the road in Seattle and whatnot, up in the Northwest here in the United States. And we just couldn't sell enough tickets, So I think people are really always up for it. It's something fun that they like. It's not a lot of pressure. And we're goofy, we will lay on top of each other and we will sing stupid songs. So it's not exactly the most, it's a fun show to see with live, because it's not the most demanding show. Although people come and they sit in the front row, and then I'll say to them, so what's a suggestion for a job or something? And they'll go, I don't know. And I'm like, you sat in the front. If you don't want to be in, this is an improv show. Sit in the back if you don't want to talk to us.
So I sat in the front row of a Gallagher gig and I got covered in fruit. I don't know what happened.
Precisely. That's our point. Why am I covered in watermelon? Because you're in the show. So if you come to an improv show and you sit in the front, you have no excuse for not thinking of something, especially since the questions aren't like, mind-numbingly difficult. It'll be like, what's your favorite movie? Or like a foreign country. And people will go, and you're like, no. If I wanted to challenge you, I'd say like, which Shakespeare play you think has the most character development?
Okay, we've got a comment from Paul Harder. Sorry, just as my mouse decides to switch itself off. Each one of my favorite parts is now to go back and see how different the show feels with different hosts. Each host offers their own unique charm to Who's Line, and it shows. Was there a favorite for you to work with?
Well, I mean, Drew did more for me than any other human. Aisha, I think, is bloody marvelous and really funny. And it's so nice to have a woman and a black woman on the show, because the show's so white guy. And so I thought that gave it some energy that it really, really needed, especially after the Clive years. Talk about white guys.
You're saying Clive
and
isn't the transatlantic man we suppose him to be?
I just did a show with Clive a couple of weeks ago. I'm not kidding. And I did. He has a podcast or something. I don't know. They've let him on the air again, and it was pretty fun. He kind of understood a lot of the humor I did. Some of it was over his head as usual, and so. The thing about Clive and me was we had a lot of good chemistry because we just ranked on each other. And then people were like, "You really like him, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever."
I mean, for someone from the States who's coming over to the UK for the first time, and you're faced with the most British man ever, I mean, come on, it must have been fodder, just the perfect fodder for you.
Oh no, he said "cheery bye" and "tally ho," and yes. And if things get too funny, he would press the button or cut you off because he was afraid that humor might overwhelm the crowd with joy. And so, yeah, we were always up against each other philosophically, I think, as far as like what a comedy show is supposed to be. My idea of a comedy show is it's supposed to be funny. And Clive's idea of a comedy show was that it's supposed to be a drag. So I think that was where the crux of it lie. The rub, as they say.
Speaking of your British links, one thing which I didn't realize until today when I was researching this was you're the American voice of Bob the Builder.
I have been. I haven't been for a while, but it was great. We did it for about 5 years. And then the company got rebought or sold off or something, as the corporations do. Neil Morrissey did it in England with his cheeky kind of northern thing. And I did the North American version, as we call it. For years. And there's another guy now, I think. There was a guy before me. There's always a guy. But it was great. I loved the gig. And they brought me to London to record. And I swear to you, this is what Americans are so whatever. For years, we'd fly to London like 2 or 3 times a year, my wife and I. And I would record in Soho at this great little studio. I would go over to Bar Italia, which I think is still there. And have an espresso, go over, do the show, and then we'd have like curry at lunch or Chinese food, like takeout, whatever. So like I loved it, right? And American people, I swear to you, I would go, I'm doing Bob the Builder, and I fly over to London, and they go, well, why don't you just record it here? You could record it in a studio here. You didn't have to go to London. And I'd be like, do you understand that they're sending me to London to do a show? So when I'm there, I can do things like have my wife love me because we're in Europe, and then we can go to France and.
I don't think you're allowed to say we're in Europe anymore. I think that's banned after Brexit.
Oh right, you're not in Europe, right?
There was a law passed. You're not allowed to mention Europe anymore.
Right. The thing that I always called England when I lived there, the dinky, dirty island off the coast of Europe, and now you really are. You've achieved dinky dirtiness. And you literally are off the coast of Europe, and that's that. So, yeah, I loved Bob the Builder. And the women who ran it, it was an all-woman affair mostly, were fabulous. And one time we recorded a bunch of shows, and the engineer inadvertently erased all of them, I swear to you. And I was in Germany at the World Cup with Drew and my wife, and they rang me and said, listen, all the shows you just recorded are gone. Will you come back over and re-record them? And we'll pay you. And I was like, yeah. So that was really great. I went back over and did all the shows over. And they gave me a bottle of champagne. Like I deserved some big treat. So I can't tell you how fun Bob the Builder was.
Do you have a particular Bob voice? Do you want to give us a
I'm doing it now. When I auditioned for it, they go, I swear to you, I was doing all these voices, like rah, 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 this, that, whatever. A cartoon, what I thought were hilarious choices. And finally, the woman came over, the tannoy for our American friends, the PA, and said, Greg, I'm sorry, would you mind? Would you mind doing it again in your voice? And I said, are you insinuating that I have a funny cartoon voice? And so I did it again, and I'm doing it just the way I'm doing it for you now, Doctor. I would go, hey, Dr. Squee, congratulations, you reduce, you reuse, and you recycle. And that's Bob the Builder. Can we build it? Yes, we can. Wendy, go get Muck and Scoop.
I love it. Another question we got. What's your favorite place to play in the Bay Area? Also, have you ever visited Vallejo?
Vallejo, yeah, Vallejo. I have not only visited Vallejo, I've played in Vallejo. I believe there was a place in Vallejo called the Nitty Gritty in the 80s. And Vallejo is famously in the East Bay, a little up and above San Francisco. If this is San Francisco, right? Oop, there it is. It's a peninsula, you see. Yeah, and then up and over here is where Vallejo is. Sort of known for its methamphetamine and its location on the Sacramento River. And yeah, it's not my favorite place to play, but it's lovely enough. I remember partying in the parking lot, the car park of Candlestick Park, where the San Francisco Giants baseball team used to play, and partying with a bunch of guys from Vallejo. This was in the 90s or 80s. The Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge were having their 50th anniversary, and they lit the Bay Bridge up, which is if it is still lit. If you go to San Francisco, the Bay Bridge is beautifully lit and on these lights that go on and off, and it's gorgeous at night. Well, they hadn't lit it for 50 years. No one had thought to light the Bay Bridge at night. So finally, they strung some lights on it so it looked pretty. And I remember partying in the parking lot of a baseball game. Before the game, we call this tailgating, which means you drank and you smoked weed, and if there was food, you ate and whatnot. And these biker dudes from Vallejo said, we're having our own celebration for the Chrsitmas Bridge. Everyone's going to go out and we're all shining a flashlight on it at the same time. And that was the Chrsitmas Bridge crosses the Sacramento River up there,
right?
Which was the gateway to the gold rush and all of California being opened up. You see, the Sacramento River comes off the bay, San Francisco Bay, and goes all the way up to Northern California. And then from there up to the gold country, blah, blah, blah.
Nice.
So I remember doing drugs with these guys in the car park, and they were from Vallejo. So there's some fond Vallejo. My favorite place to play is San Francisco. I love Marin. We just played San Jose, which is in the South Bay. San Jose is a little more rough and ready, and the Mexican food there is astonishing. It's a really Latin place. All the conquistadors who came through California at the old days, right, with the priests and whatnot. That's what the story of the Bay, De Anza and Portola, Cabrillo, and of course the pirate, Drake the pirate. Sir Francis Drake the pirate landed in Marin in 1588 and was starving to death until the Indians gave him food. And he was like, where am I? And they're like, you're in Marin, relax.
Lovely.
Smoke a bowl, dude. We're near San Rafael, man. It's going to be cool. Have some milk, man. Just cool it. And Drake was like, what? I have to go around the world and pillage or whatever in the name of the queen. And they were like, no, they gave him fish, evidently.
Yeah, I believe his autobiography was, I have to smoke a bowl and pillage and stuff.
Yes. If you go to Marin, which is above San Francisco to the north, across the Golden Gate Bridge, the giant street that goes through San Rafael and everything is Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. So we haven't forgotten our colonial forebears.
One I did want to ask you about was, again, in research for this, I saw this wonderful photo of you from the filming of this. It was Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, where you got to be one of the commentators. And you would I didn't realize, I got there was kind of green screen and they did mocap and stuff. I didn't realize you were it looked like you were in this 2-person shirt with this other guy. What was that?
I am. The other guy is Scott Capurro. He's a comedian from San Francisco. He lives in London.
Pardon my ignorance on him.
We were both doing shows in Edinburgh in 96, 97, whatever. And the casting person came from Phantom Menace. And George, that's George Lucas to you. George always shoots in foreign countries, right? Like it was they shot all the Star Wars movies, the old ones, not the new ones.
Yeah.
In Tunisia, the classic ones, let's be honest. In Tunisia, England, whatnot, you know.
Yeah.
So we auditioned to be the pod race announcers, and then we shot it in Leavesden. And to give you an idea of what year it was, the helicopters from Golden Eye were in the prop shop, yeah. And they had just made a cat suit for Uma Thurman for that horrible Avengers movie with Ray Fiennes.
Oh God, yeah.
Where
And
Eddie
by
is
the way,
our-
kids, we're not talking about Marvel. We're the Avengers is in based on the
No,
UK
the
TV show back in the day.
Mrs. Peel, that Avengers,
Yeah.
Steed and Mrs. Peel. They tried to do a movie of it in the 90s, and it wasn't very funny. But when we went in the costume shop and they made my head for the pod race announcer, Faux Danadoo, which, by the way, we were never told the names of our characters. I don't think we had names. The guys in the shop were really excited because Uma Thurman had been in the week before and they had her down to her underwear so they could make this bodysuit for her. So they were vibrating with excitement to tell me that Uma Thurman had been in and had to get to her underwear so they could wrap her in paper mache. And then they wrapped my head. And this is the old days, the 90s. So in those days, I swear to you, they stuck straws up your nose so you didn't die while they were doing it. And that was the safety measure. So they put 2 straws, like from McDonald's, they just cut them and stuffed them up my nose and went like, okay, try not to die. And then they put the thing on my head for like 5 hours. And then they took it off. So then we made the movie, and George was really nice. And I had my glasses off, and I really can't see without my glasses, right? Or now I've had my eyes fixed a little so I can kind of see. But George comes up to me and Scott and goes, have you seen the pod race sequence? And I said, no, George, no one's seen it. It's a secret because we were sworn to secrecy. So he goes, oh, well, would you like to see it? And I went, yeah, sure, we'll watch. So takes us over to a monitor that's this big, smaller than the phone, right? It was this big, a monitor. And there's a schematic mixed with some live action, mixed with some animation of the pod race, right? With a vocal track stuck on it. You know, it was like the rough cut of what the pod race was going to look like. So it was, you know, like, and this big. And I had no glasses on because I was wearing a giant head. So I put my face this close to the screen, right? And watched it. And then we're like, okay. And then he was like, so you want to try some takes? This is how he directed Star Wars. And I went, yeah, we'll do some takes. So we get up and he goes, okay, look to the right, you know. Okay, now look up. This is what we did. Then we'd read the lines. He never said cut and he never said action, right? Which you'll get that so that you know when you're working and when you're not working. George never said that. And there was hundreds of people standing there. It was 2 of us in front of a blue screen. Hundreds of people standing there. I had no idea. And he was acting like he was playing with, Chew. Like with the, right. So he walked up to us and he goes, well, that was good. Do you want to do another take? And I went, yeah, we'll do another take, George. He went, okay. And that was how we did it. And so
a helpful director.
At the end of the day, I don't know how many of your fans are Star Wars people, but at the end of the day, Scott goes up to the second AD and he says, is there any swag, right? Because we've been there all day. One day, by the way. And the second AD goes, give me half a mo, right? Runs away, comes back, gives us 2 polar fleeces. And they say on them, and I don't know if you're a Star Wars person, Episode 1.
Nice. Have you still got it?
Phantom Menace. The movie didn't have a name yet. So it is, in fact, episode 1 of the entire enchilada.
Yep. Yeah, and I believe the guys who had you down to your underwear with the things up your nose were boasting about that for weeks later to the next crew who came in. It wasn't just Uma.
And also, I own a polar fleece that is kind of like having a Revenge of the Jedi t-shirt. I don't think there's very many that say episode 1 on them, because obviously it got branded. And yes, I've done a bunch of stuff for Star Wars since then. No, I'm not in any of the new ones like Boba Fett or anything, but they did a cartoon, an animated series called The Resistance a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if your fans know that one, but it was an animated series about these freedom fighters who fly TIE fighters and stuff. And anyway, they brought me back as the pod race announcer. And they changed my name, which I thought was hilarious. So it was a new character, you see. So that was great fun. And then I went to a convention a couple years ago, right before the plague, in Chicago. And I'd never, in all the years of Star Wars, I'd never been to one. So I went to an actual Star Wars convention. And it was in Chicago, and it was huge. And I really had a great time. It was smashing.
Fantastic. Just a couple more bits I wanted to get to. So first of all, you did pop up in A Nightmare Before Christmas. Not only did you get involved with the film, but you also get to go on the road with Danny Elfman, go to the Hollywood Bowl as part of it to perform live.
Yeah.
What's it like being part of? Like, it was an amazing film, but it's now part of people's Christmas every year.
I know, right? I'm lucky enough to be in a couple of things that people really love, like Star Wars and Nightmare. Thank God for the 90s, right? I did the movie and we recorded it in 92, and I worked with Danny, who did all the music, right? And all the singing. He sings Jack. And he wrote the whole score. And Tim Burton was the producer. He didn't work on the movie with us. We worked with a director named Henry Selick, who just did a movie with Jordan, with Key and Peele, I think. I think he just did an animated series with them. Anyway, Henry Selick did James and the Giant Peach and Monkey Bone and whatnot.
Yep.
And in any case, the last about 5-7 years ago, Danny decided to go on the road with the live version, right? So a full symphony. He and John Mauceri, who's the conductor from the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra for 15 years, and a protege of Leonard Bernstein, would go on the road and do movies from the Tim Burton films. And Danny would get up and sing, and they'd play the songs and whatnot. And then I guess they got the idea, let's just do the whole thing live, right? So we did it at the Hollywood Bowl, and that was 2015, I think. Anyway, it's been awesome. Other than the year of the plague when we were contained, we couldn't go out that year and do it. But we did it last year at a soccer stadium downtown here in Los Angeles. And it's awesome beyond measure. I am right in front of the conductor. So like you're me and I'm the conductor. So when I'm cueing you, I'm standing right over you. Like I'm literally post up. And so it's boss and the whole orchestra behind me, and I'm in front of the strings, right? All the violas and whatnot. So when the show starts, it goes like you feel like your heart's going to burst. And last year rather, at October, Halloween, we had Billie Eilish sang Sally.
Wow.
And normally it's Catherine O'Hara. So it's just been awesome beyond measure. In 2019, and this is why I'll never forgive the Republicans ever in my life for letting the plague be as horrible as it is, or Boris Johnson for that matter, and Jacob Rees-Mogg and Aaron fucking Cunting Bank and Nigel Farage and all those fucking Nazis for ruining my life, is that we were in Japan in May of 2019, and then we went to Dublin, Glasgow, and London and did the show live at Wembley Arena with Danny and the London Symphony Orchestra. I swear to you, the Irish National Orchestra and the Scottish National Orchestra. So, and when Japan, we played this giant concert hall in Tokyo. It's the best gig I've ever had in my life. It's, I mean, you know, right? Oh, and by the way, for our Welsh friends, we'll be back in London in December. Like I think it's December 9th and 10th. We're already booked for Wembley Arena this year. So we'll be back doing it live in England with Danny Elfman. I think Ken Page will be there, who plays Oogie Boogie. We'll see if Catherine comes. She didn't do the show in LA last year because she was doing a movie in England. So maybe she'll be in England anyway and play Sally.
And
And
speaking
Danny sings.
Oh, amazing. Like, yeah, that sounds like a pretty special show. We would be remiss if we didn't mention your podcast, The Smartest Man in the World. You've already mentioned it a little bit, but you've toured around Hollywood, New Zealand, Australia, Montreal, Edinburgh, Helsinki, London, and just all around the world doing this show. And you perform it live to go on the podcast. Tell us a bit about the show.
Well, we started doing the podcast in 2010. And after the first one, my wife said to me, this is really good. You should really keep doing this. So we did. And then she joined the show a couple of years ago. And then in earnest during the containment. So my wife and I do the show together here from the Fortress of Prupitude now. But that's only because we haven't been able to travel around the world for the last couple of years. We did one live in San Francisco at New Year's. That was one. And then we just recorded one a couple of days ago. That'll be out this week. Been on a bit of a hiatus for like a month or two, but we're coming back, and the show goes every week. My wife and I record it here. It's called The Smartest Man in the World, although we should have changed it to The Smartest Couple some time ago, I suppose. And then we're recording the film club tomorrow night here in Los Angeles. My wife Jennifer curates the film club, and we work with the American Cinematheque here in Los Angeles. And we played a bunch of different theaters here with that as well. That's another podcast I do called the Greg Proops Film Club, even though Jennifer is really the one who picks all the movies. And we're showing To Sir with Love, which we were going to show in January, but there was such a giant flurry of activity after Sidney Poitier swirled into the heavens that everyone in town had control of his movies. And so we had to wait another month to get to show To Sir with Love. We wanted to show Lilies of the Field last month. Anyway, that's tomorrow night, and that's a live podcast. I get up and I spiel, and then that goes out on SoundCloud. Smartest Man in the World is on, what is it called? Apple Music, all your favorites places. Also, if you go to gregproops.com, it's totally free, and it's a lot of politics, feminism. This week's episode, we talk a lot about Biden's program, Biden-Harris, and Black history, without saying that it's Black History Month, which it is. We talk about Sidney Poitier, Mr. Simon, who was in Parliament Funkadelic. Let's see who else. Lucy Harris, who was a famous Black college basketball player who was drafted, and that kind of thing. So a lot of feminism, a lot of history, a lot of, hopefully, comedy occasionally. Yeah, we've been around the world with it. It's great. We were supposed to go to London and play the Soho Theatre in March of 2020 when everything went to hell in a handbasket. So hopefully we'll be back. I'll try like the Dickens to do one in London in December. And Wales, I don't know when we're getting back to Wales. That's, this is a giant reset for everybody. So.
Oh yeah. And there's The Smartest Book in the World now as well. People can enjoy.
Yes, that's an ancient tome that I wrote some years ago. It's still, I think, available online. I have thousands of copies in my house. If you'd like to come and visit me, I probably give you one. I should probably hand them out now. It's good fun. I wrote it. I wrote it under duress some time ago, and that's about. There's way too much baseball in it, but music and literature and punctuation. I decry the Oxford comma. You know what? It's supposed to not be a challenging book. It's the kind of book you pick up and put down. What they call a bathroom book here in America.
Yep. Just quickly before we let you go, sir, thank you very much for being so generous with your time.
It's my pleasure, Doctor.
Can I just ask, where this is going out on a radio version, is there a tune we can play for you first of all?
A tune?
Yeah, any song you want. Well, as long as it hasn't got any swearing in, because radio.
Yeah, no, I won't pick one with swearing. Well, yeah, because there's been so many people swirl off into the heavens recently. I think if you could play "Be My Baby" by the Ronettes in honor of Ronnie Spector.
What a lovely choice. And if you wouldn't mind, just very quickly before I do let you go, would you mind just recording a quick bumper for the radio show?
Absolutely. What do I say?
It's Greg Proops. You're listening to the Dr. Squee Show on SW20 Radio.
SW20. Okay. Hey, y'all. It's me, Greg Proops from Whose Line Is It Anyway? The only American you can trust. And you're digging the Dr. Squee Show on SW20. Kapow.
Perfect, sir. Pro as always, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the entertainment over the years. I really have been a big fan since I was growing up. I watched you on the original Whose Line. You say about research, a lot of this stuff is just from remembering watching you on things over the years. Just thank you very much, sir.
Hey, thanks again, Doctor. And do email me and let me know when you're going to post it, and I'll post it on my Twitter and Instagram and jazz.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And as my mouse, like, this is the problem with wireless mouses. They will switch off just when you want to go to your own credits.
Right.
And it's back on now. So I've been Dr. Squee. That was my show. And guys, please remember, in a world where you can be absolutely anything, please be kind.